Hello everyone. I hope exams are going fairly well. Uh, Remember, hard work pays. I just want us to go through some section of legal accounting for lawyers. I've been getting some requests when it comes to the correspondence. So I just spent my time just to give you a short video on correspondence. Hopefully this video will be able to clarify some of the important aspects or terminology that we normally use in legal accounting. I just want to start with an exercise or a question. As I said, maybe hopefully it will be in a better position to help you guys. These are still my details for any other future correspondence. You can use this, and maybe I can be able to help you with clarity when it comes to some of the concepts. This is the question that I'm going to use. As I indicated, I said I'm going to focus on the correspondence. Remember, sometimes as legal practitioners or as lawyers, sometimes you can have a client who is far away from you. For example, you can be in Pretoria and your client is in Bloemfontein. So it means you can liaise with one of the attorneys there in Velkom, for example, or Bloemfontein, so that he can act on your behalf. So in other words, there may be transactions between the instructing attorney and the correspondent. So we need to know how to account for those transactions as they have financial implications on those entities, namely the instructing attorney and the correspondent. So let's use this exercise and check if we can be able to understand better. Here is a statement which we received. This statement was received from the correspondent, this statement. And then as you can see, the name of our correspondent here is Velkom correspondent. So this is very much important. So we are dealing with correspondent by the name of Velkom. So they acted on our behalf, representing our client. So we have got transactions between us, the instructing attorney, and the correspondent by the name of Velkom. So the statement shows that, if you can check here, the statement shows that the amount collected was 31,000. And out of that 31,000, the following fees were incurred. Remember, these fees at the end of the day are the responsibility of the client we are representing. But at the moment, it's just a statement. We've collected 31,000, and the fees which have been incurred, as you can see here, for the summons fees, the sheriff's fees, and the collection fee. And now it goes further and say your allowance, which is 1/3 in most cases. Okay, the allowance, it means the fee that the instructing attorney will account for. So this will be the fee which will belong to what? To us, the instructing attorney. Okay, and out of this statement, the cash received from the correspondent was how much? 28,100. The check received represents cash. So at the moment, I foresee having cash in the bank. So this is very much important at the end of the day. So this statement at the end of the day is going to be used to compile the books of accounts under the instructing attorney, at the same time under the correspondent. At the moment, I'm going to focus mainly on what? On the instructing attorney, and at a future date, I'm going to focus on the correspondence using the same exercise. So as you can see here, so we need to open the relevant trust ledger accounts and the business ledger account. In other words, I'm going to open all the necessary accounts which must be opened under an instructing attorney. Okay. So we need to open all the possible accounts at the end of the day. Now, these are the accounts which we are going to open at the end of the day. So I want us to go through this. Remember, for you to understand this, you should have learned the basics accounting concepts. I expect you to know what is an asset. I expect you to know all the groups of accounts. Remember, we have 5 groups of accounts. We've got assets, owner's equities, liabilities, incomes, and expenses. So when you look at these accounts, you need to be able to classify them and know where do we increase them and where do we decrease them. As you can see here, we have trust accounts and we also have what we call the business account. Accounts is where I record the information that affects our clients. In other words, whatever information affecting the clients will be recorded under trust accounts. And under business accounts, we are going to record what affects the business at the end of the day. We need to separate between the trust account and the business account. Remember, trust accounts deal with the monies which I receive from my clients. Remember, sometimes we receive money in advance and we keep them on behalf of our clients. So we're going to record them under trust accounts. But after performing all those services, it means we need to be paid for our services. So all the money that's going to be received from the trust account must be. Okay. In a nutshell, if you receive money from a client so that you can be able to represent the client maybe in a month's time, that money cannot be used. So that's why we must put it under the trust for time being. It means we owe the client for time being, and only after we have performed is then that we can transfer to the business account. Now, let's go back to the question. I think you now have the question. Remember, the first thing that we need to record here, we need to record the cash we received from the client. Remember, we have got 3 people here. We have got the correspondent, we've got the instructing attorney, we've got the client. At the moment, we need to focus on the instructing attorney and the correspondent by the name of Velcom. It means we will take Velcom correspondent like our own client so that things will make sense. After dealing with Velcom, is then that we're going to transfer the information from Velcom to the client. Are we together? So for now, I'm going to focus on the instructing attorney and Velcom correspondent. Okay. The first thing that we must record, we must always record the cash received. The cash received, as you can see here, is the check herewith. So we received an amount of 28,100. So we need to go and record under the trust account because that amount belonged to our client. Okay. And remember, the trust bank account. The trust bank account is an asset. So when I receive cash, I must go to the debit side and record that cash. So on the debit side, we need to record trust correspondent. It means we got this cash from the trust correspondent and we got how much? We got 28,100. So this is the money that is in the trust. It is belonging to the client. But this money, remember, it was received. That's why I must go and credit the trust correspondent. Remember, the trust correspondent is representing the client. Dealing with the client directly, the information was supposed to be recorded in the same way. Trust correspondent is a liability to the business at the end of the day. So in a way, we just say we are owing a client 1,100. But that client at the moment is represented by the correspondent. So the correspondent, our client at the moment. So that's why we say we owe them 28,100, and that amount that we owe them, it is placed in our trust bank account. Which again we can apply the double entry. From debit, you go to the credit. That's the first thing that we need to do to record the amount. Secondly, we need to go and account for our fee. Remember, on the statement, we've got where they say your allowance, which is including VAT. That is a fee that belongs to us. It's 1/3. Okay, so that 1/3 must be accounted in our book. So we need to make sure that we bill is like we're billing what? The correspondent. Remember, at the moment, we are transacting with the correspondent who represent our client. So we need to go and make sure that we show that that amount is a fee. That's how we're going to affect our business account because that fee belongs to us. So we need to go to the business correspondent. Remember, business correspondent is an asset to us in a way. So you can write next to it a debtor. So debtors increase under which side? On the debit side. So I'm going to say fee, as you can see, fee and VAT, which is how much? 1140. So this means that we build business correspondent, or we build our client how much? 1140. And this amount is for the fees. Remember, we are the VAT vendors. At the same time, we need to account for VAT. So you can call this VAT if you want to be very specific and output VAT. It means we must also go and transfer to our fees, meaning we need to go to the fees. Fees are the incomes, and incomes increase on the credit side. Even if you forgot, let's say, the rules of account equation, you can still say, okay, because I'm transferring from the debit side of the correspondent, it means when I go to the fees, I'm going to go to the opposite side, meaning on the credit side. And I show that I took it from the business correspondent. And how much did I take? Remember, the fee must be separated from what? From VAT. I must only put the amount after deducting what? VAT. So the amount is 991. Remember, as I said, you need to have the basics before you do this. You must know how to calculate VAT. You must know how to calculate amount of VAT and take it out. So there are different ways of calculating. So at the moment, the amount of the fees which will be received from the correspondent, which belongs to us as a business, is going to be what? 991. At the same time, we need to account for VAT. Remember, VAT consists of the input and the output. The fact that we charged our client, it means that is called VAT output. We owe SARS. It means, how will we show that we owe SARS? It means we must go and record on the credit side. Like I said, you can also use the double entry system. You search here VAT from the business correspondent, meaning under VAT, I must also go to what? To the credit side to account only for that amount of what? The amount of VAT. So the amount of VAT is how much? It's 140.49. You can either say 1140 minus 991. So the remainder will be the amount of VAT. Or you should have said 1140 times 15 over 115. It's up to you. So this is the amount of VAT that I accounted for. That's why I put on the credit side, because I owe SARS this amount of money. Here, under fees, I put on the credit side because all the incomes is on the credit side. And why did I debit here is because this business correspondent is like a debtor to me. A debtor has been billed, so all the assets increase on the debit side. As I said again, you can still apply the double entry system. Okay. So that is the next step that you need to put here. And thereafter, we need to go back to the statement. As you can see, we have the fees which have been incurred by the time when we are acting on behalf of the client. Remember, at the end of the day, the client will be responsible for that. But for time being, we're still dealing with what? Correspondent. In a nutshell, all in all, it's like we collected 31,000, meaning it's the 28,100 plus the other fees which we incurred. So again, we must show that that money, because it was collected at the end of the day, is also affect what? The trust correspondent. Can you see now? So the reason why I said trust client under the trust correspondent, it means, yes, the correspondent incurred this amount of money. He incurred 4040 on behalf of our client. So at the moment, it's like we are owing the correspondent 28,100 and also how much? 4,040. So as you can see, this amount is owed to the correspondent. But I must say trust client. Why? Because the client is responsible for that. That's why I must at the same time transfer to the client on the debit side the same amount. You see now? So it means a client has been what? Debited. The reason why we do, remember, a client is also a liability. So if I can put on the credit side, it will mean that I owe the client. But at the moment, the client owe how much? 4040. And that amount was incurred on behalf of the client by the correspondent. So at the moment, it's like the client is is owing the correspondent how much? 4040. But we have to transfer the trust line to show that the trust client is responsible for that. Meaning, before we pay him, we are going to deduct this what? 4040. That's why it's on the debit side. Okay, this step is very much important. So that is how to transfer the fees which were incurred by the correspondent on behalf of what? Of the client at the end of the day. Okay, I hope everyone understands. The next step is to make sure that we record the amount collected from what? From the correspondent. Remember, at the moment, this amount of 31,400 was collected from what? Was collected by the correspondent. So we need to make sure that we go to the correspondent and record this amount. Okay, and this amount at the same time needs to be transferred to the client. Remember, the whole amount of 31,000 was collected on behalf of the client by the correspondent. So now we need to take this 31,000 from the correspondent and we take it to the client. Can you see at the moment the client is being owed 31,000, but up to out of that 31,000, 4040 will be deducted. Why? Because we incurred expenses because of the client. So at the moment, if I say I want to pay the client, I'm going to pay him 31,000 minus what? 4040. Does that make sense? So the amount collected must always be transferred to the client. Remember, this is the amount. If you can check, the 28,100 is on the credit of the correspondent, of which 31,000 consist of these two amounts. So at the moment, we take this 31,000 out of the correspondent, we take it to what? To the client. Can you see now? As I said, we first deal with the correspondent before we transfer to what? To the client. Okay, that's how to deal with the amount collected. Remember the difference between 31 and 28,100? This is the real cash. The reason why we don't put 31,000 here is because we only received cash of 28,100. You see, that's why only 28,100 affect the bank. But the whole amount was on the statement. If we didn't have any other expenses to pay, we were supposed to record 31,000 on this account. But here we just show that we collected how much? 31,000, and that amount belongs to what? The trust client. And then again, this amount of 31,000 must be reduced by the expenses which have been incurred on behalf of the client. Remember, trust line is a creditor, is a liability. Even the trust correspondent is a liability. Okay. The next step is to make sure that we go and do the transfer. You know that when we talk about the transfer, it means we transfer what belongs to the business. Okay? So it means, as you can see here, we have got fees of how much? Of 1,140. So this fee must be transferred. Remember, it is from the business correspondent. You can call this a debtor to the business. So now we need to transfer this to what? To the correspondent, the trust correspondent. As you can see, I said trust correspondent, how much? I said 1,140 on the credit side. I must apply the double entry system and go to the trust correspondent and then put how much? The same amount. Does this make sense? So it means at the moment, we transferred the amount from our debtor and we transfer to what? To the correspondent. And it makes sense because when you put on the debit side, it means we are decreasing the trust correspondent because this fee needs to be paid to us. So this, as you can see, I changed the color. So this means if they ask you for the transfer, this is the amount of transfer. We transfer the fees which belong to us. So now it's like we went to the trust correspondent and we had to make sure that we take the amount out of what? Of the trust correspondent. So that at the end of the day, this trust correspondent can balance. But this doesn't mean that this is cash yet. It's just showing you that the amount that has been received from the correspondent must be decreased by what? Must be decreased by the fees which belong to the business. You will see that this fee of 1140 will be deducted from the trust bank account, but I'm still going to show you how to transfer from the trust bank account. So this is very much important at the end of the day. You transfer from the business correspondent, meaning the fact that I wrote business here, it means this is what belongs to us. But where will I take it from? I must go and take it from the trust correspondent, because the trust correspondent is the one who collected money on our behalf. So at the end of the day, we need to take that from the trust correspondent, because at the end, the trust correspondent must end up being what? A zero. Okay. After that, we need to make sure that we go and check the trust line. Can you see at the moment, it shows that we have got trusts. The amount of how much of 31,000, it means we owe the client 31,000, but the client's money must be deducted by how much? We must reduce it by 4,040. So meaning we cannot pay him 31,000 because of this expense. So if, for example, we collected 31,000 on behalf of the client, and then we didn't incur any other expenses, this 31,000 was supposed to be paid to the client, but we can't. We must first reduce what? The 31,000 by what? 4,040. So we need to balance this account in a way so that we can be able to know how much must we pay the client. So firstly, we're going to say, okay, before we go that, so I'm going to come back to this one. But now let's go and balance the correspondent account. I just want to show you this. The trust correspondent, the biggest side, if you can see, is 32. If you add the two, I added the two figures. I said 28,100 plus 4,040, and I have to put it here. If you can check, both sides are equal. You see, that's what I'm saying. The trust correspondent, can you see now? So at the end of the day, these sides are equal. It means whatever the client has collected has been taken from his account, and we took everything to what? To the client. So that's why this account is automatically balanced. Okay? We must also balance the trust client. When it comes to the trust client, the biggest side is this side. And remember how to balance the account. The biggest side must appear both sides. That's why I came at 31. Now I say 31 minus 4,040. What is the difference? The difference is 26,960. Meaning we can only pay the client 26,960, not 31,000, because we must first deduct the 4,040 that we incurred as expenses when we're acting on his behalf. So that's why trust bank, from the trust bank, we can only pay our client how much? 26,960. And then, as you can see, I'm gonna go there and record it. Can you see now the double entry system? And I go and pay the client how much? 26,960. Out of what? Out of the 28,100 that I have. Okay, so it means I'm paying client 26,960 because according to the balance here, I can only pay him 26,960 because I have to first deduct what? The 4,040, and then I can't pay 31,000. As I said, if I didn't have this, the trust bank was supposed to be how much? 31,000. You were supposed to check how much? I have how much here? 31,000. Can you see now? Now, this is very much important. After doing this, we need to make sure that we go back to the transfer. Remember, we transferred from the business correspondent to the trust correspondent 1,140. So this 1,140 belongs to the business. So we must also take it out of what? We must also take it out of what? Of the trust bank. Can you see that amount? We took it out and we take it to what? To our own business account. Can you see that? So this is like the further transfer. We must first transfer from here to here, and before we can take the real cash. This was not the real cash. It was just trying to transfer the amount from a debtor and take it from our credit. So now the real cash is here. We're going to take that cash and take it to what? To the bank. So you need to understand the basics first before you can be able to do this. So this is a very important question. I think even those who are sometimes right board exams, you know, sometimes they do ask you questions like this, but we just need clarity. You cannot memorize. I think you know by now, in accounting, we don't memorize. We must master the basics. No one is perfect, but I'm telling you, if you put an effort, if you make sure that you ask questions, I'm telling you, you're gonna make it. So make sure that you know how to account in these books. So know when to affect the business books and know when to affect what? The trust books. As you can see, I affected the business books with the amount which affected us. The amount which affected our fees, it belongs to us. But the most of the transactions were under trust account because here we were representing our client. And what I want you to remember very well, we have got three parties involved. We've got the instructing attorney, we've got the correspondent, we've got the client. So we must first transact with the correspondent, meaning we must deal with the books, the transactions between the instructing attorney and the correspondent. And thereafter is then that we transfer information from the correspondent to the client. Why? Because here we're not dealing with business transactions. We're dealing with the correspondent who is somewhere else. So now we've got a middleman. So we must deal with the little, let's say the middleman like our own client. That's why thereafter we transfer the information. Remember, everything that came here on the debit side, it means we are taking it out. Can you see now? We are taking it out to what? To the client. So hopefully this makes sense, guys. I know sometimes online doesn't make sense, but guys, as from next year, I'm gonna run tutorials online. Those who are interested, you can come and join me at a reasonable fee. Obviously, I'm not gonna charge you a lot, but if you need more, I know sometimes it's easier if we interact online like this, where you can ask questions, or sometimes face to face. But it's up to you. If it works for you, here is the video, guys. Thank you very much. I appreciate it a lot. And I hope you're gonna pass. And please, when you pass, let me know. Please, just tell me that you passed. Thank you very much, and have a great day. Thank you.